Happy 2018, Chris.
Same to you, brother. Same to you. I just actually finished writing that string 010118. I think this is officially the first time I've written that down, and probably officially the last time that I'll write it so fluidly. Definitely the next time I write it, I'm going to be throwing a 2017 on it. So I'm trying to lock it in.
How long does it take you? How long does it take you approximately before you're smooth into writing 2018?
There's no guarantees. It's funny because I've thought about this from a slightly different angle, and it's in the spirit of making New Year's resolutions. And funny moment yesterday. Well, I guess funny to me, but Karen, my spouse, asked me, "So, are you making any resolutions?" And I just kind of point blank said, "No, no, I'm not." I haven't found success in making resolution. Like, I haven't found, there's no wins there for me, none. Pie in the sky. I get all dreamy about it, like this is going to be the year, and then you put a whole string of things there that will make it the year, and I just think to myself, it doesn't work. So why, this me being able to write the 010118, or even trying to continue recognizing that it is 2018, what I have come to accept is that at some point I'll know. So at some point, the body will just accept it's 2017. I also accept that in leading up to that, in both private and public ways, I will write 2017 or maybe 2016. I've never done that. I've never gone 2 years back, but I have, June. I'm looking at something and I'm like, why did I put two? I'm trying to sequence something. I'm like, I have all these documents that are of the year, and I'm like, one or two of them that are dated like a year before. So I will continue to create mystery in my own life. The thing that it makes me think about, though, is, and the reason I talked about the New Year's resolutions, is that attempt to try and learn a new thing. So yeah, just because whatever it was 7-8 hours ago, the clock's changed over to a brand new year, it's going to take a while for that to settle in for me. Like, the reality of it, making it a pattern of behavior. I know it'll get there, but that's maybe 2 months out. 2 months out before I can actually know that I've got that one locked. What about you?
Well, first of all, I was not expecting you to say any of that. I did not expect to hear that type of response, that answer. For me, I think there is a finite. It takes me about 2 weeks. So when we get back to school, it'll take me 2 weeks before I start writing 2018 fluidly without having to think about it. The resolution thing, I dropped that a long time ago. New Year's resolutions for me are same type of thing as you. Like, it's not the new year that I start making resolutions when I need to, right? So you're familiar with me in my life. I started a resolution in August that I'm still working on, and it's not gone away, right? So it's a good thing that my behavior is moving in the right direction for particular things in my life. But this New Year's thing, I don't do that. I just kind of enjoy the fact that a new year has started. It's interesting to see other people around me do their thing and hear about the exciting things they want to try or do. But yeah, it'll take me not too long for the 2018 thing. And the resolution thing, I dropped that a long time ago. I make resolutions when I need to. I don't wait for a new year to start. Not anymore. But back in the day when I was a young child and I would make resolutions, same thing, failure all the time. And failure is good when you can learn from it, but I wasn't learning from anything. I was just failing and moving on.
So, okay, couple things. Okay, so that idea of renewal, like somehow 2018 has, in the transitioning between years, do you have any sense? Okay, so if you're not making that resolution, you're not making end game goals until the opportunity kind of pops, Are you is there a sense of newness? Do you get any sense of transition at all? Part of that might be whatever celebration may or may not have occurred last night, or the fact that this is kind of the time of the season when we feel like we're in transition. Um, you've you've mentioned on previous casts about um, your EDU side, and in your context, developing the spirituality, developing the spiritual preparedness for part of the season with your students. Is there? I don't know if I ever got to ask you, but do you get something from that too? Do you feel like you're prepping for something? And it's just occurring to me now that that idea, like the work that we do with, let's say, our students in trying to get them to a place, and recognizing that we would kind of like to land at that place too. So let's back off because I was really, really messy. Basically, do you get connected to that spirit of change right now, despite the fact there might not be resolutions or, life-changing goals that you have, but are you in touch with that at all?
Yes. So the answer to that question is yes, certainly. I do feel the newness. I do feel like there is something exciting about the start of a new year. Um, and the whole spiritual thing for sure. Like as my students were preparing for Christmas through Advent, I was doing the same thing, right? Like even though the focus is not on me, it's on them and it's on us and what we're doing. Certainly, I'm also preparing, and that's one of the cool things about being a teacher is that I get to partake. I get to partake as well, and because I'm immersed in it, um, I just think like, how could I not? I mean, I guess I could step out of it, but I don't want to. I want to be part of it. But I do feel a newness. I feel like I think it's cool. I mean, it's a new year, right? So there's a lot of just by nature, there's a lot of reflecting on the last year. There is some looking forward. Like just because I don't make resolution doesn't mean that there's things I'm looking forward to or things I want to try. I'm not naive enough to, well, maybe that's the wrong word because I don't want to, I'm not, I don't need this day to be the day that I tell you that I want to improve my health, right? Or that I'm going to prep for a 5K. Like that's not what happens to me today. Today is like, oh, it's the start of a new year. And that's kind of cool. And there's some fun around that, right? Like you and I talking about this stuff. It's pretty cool. And my kids, they're excited as well. Like before you and I started, I was sitting in here, it was quiet. And then I hear like the bounce out of the bed and the little feet coming my way. And the first thing my son says is Happy New Year. And he's got a big smile on his face because he's been waiting for this moment, because for him, it's a cool moment to be able to wake up and be like, hey, it's a new year, So definitely there's excitement but can I throw in like the decoded part of it? It's also, this day marks the Sunday of my holidays, right? Because it's the second week of holidays. I have to go back to work in a week. So it's a bit of a downer in a way too, because it's like, oh, the second half of my break is starting, which means it's going to come to an end. So if you want to put it that, it's like the August of the new year. Uh-oh, it's August. I only have a month left to reflect, relax, and get ready. I just wanted to throw that in because as a teacher, I know I'm not the only one that feels that way, but it's not going to stop me from enjoying my week. That's for sure.
I think I totally get that. Part of the spirit of me asking that question is also like, I don't, I don't think there's any teacher out there that hasn't had someone mention to them in some passing fashion, it must be great to have that time off. It must be great to have the summer. It might be, and I've never been one to, I just say, yeah, It's wonderful. Like I don't spend a lot of time in the conversations, despite sometimes it can feel sort of provocative when somebody says that. I remember way back in university. So in university, I took a lot of different courses, but I spent a good chunk of my time doing a drama degree, a theater degree, and that part of my university life was, out of any of the different courses that I took, was probably the most fulfilling. It satisfied so many different parts of me as a person and me as a learner, and to actually set me up well with, let's say, potential work coming out of university, because I did have to do the acting and the directing and the writing part of it, but where I spent more time was in the technical side. So building sets, doing sound design, making costumes, learning makeup, so that the trade, the hands-on part of the theater degree. And I can remember it vividly, first year university in residence, sitting and having to memorize lines for my class, and someone walked by. It was sort of coming up on finals, exam season, whatever that looked like for everybody, and they said, it must be great, wish I could study a script and just learn some lines and have the joy that you seem to be having reading the script. And my response at that time, and I felt like that was almost like that conversation was a seed point for some of the conversations I've had later in life now as the teacher, where people observe that you're getting some gratuity in the holidays. And I don't want to sort of spend a lot of time on that either way. I could argue a system where it would be a balanced school year. I could argue a system where, equitably, the idea that a singular religious holiday governing a school year, that kind of a system. There's a lot of, I could be in that conversation. But if I track back to my first university, my pat response to someone kind of remarking on the fact that I was studying a script, I'm like, come on in, the water's fine. You don't have to, if you are dissatisfied with your chemistry degree, if you're dissatisfied with your economics degree, urban planning, all these other individual students that were around me, I'm like, come on in. There's lots of space in the drama world. There's lots of space. And I find like I default to that now when someone sort of just off the cuff will address that chunk of time that is the system, that is the system that we're in right now. But that chunk of time where we get downtime, I'm like, come on over. Like, you're a doctor, come in and start teaching. You're an electrician, come on in and start teaching. We need you. Come on in. So that's one thing that rattled off. The other part is that I also realized that I don't have this clear cut thing where I kind of go, yay, it's the weekend, or yay, it's March break. Like believe me, I was totally, I'm aware when summer's coming up. I'm not so blind that way. I'm aware when the Christmas holiday is coming up in March break. And of course, because it's not just me in my world, it's my family. So everyone feels differently about in my house, and different plans have to be made. But for me, I don't get to Friday and say, whew, it's the weekend. And I didn't get to that Friday before the Christmas break and go, whew. I just kind of moved into it. And so I'm aware that we're sort of at the halfway mark, but I don't have a lot of emotional investment in it. I just sort of look at it as there's X more days before I'm going to be transitioning to do something else. It's kind of strange. It's actually maybe a little sad. Maybe I need to be a little more celebratory. I don't know.
There are some Fridays that I'm totally pumped about. For whatever reason, I think like the kids have an event, or we're going to do something as a family that weekend. And so I want it to come. But I hear what you're saying about like that. There are some people who just live for it, eh? Like some people just live for Friday. Some people just live for the Christmas vacation or the summer vacation. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that for me, there's different times. There's different times. Some school years, I would really like to get to to Christmas faster than others just because of the flow or the lack of it. But I hear what you're saying, and I really like what you're saying about your drama degree and inviting people in. The dissatisfaction with the particular disciplines that somebody might be studying made me chuckle a little bit, just because it's funny, right? Like you actually reminded me of an experience I had recently. So my family and I were away, and we were having dinner at a restaurant, and our server was relatively young compared to my wife and I. And I was wearing my Carleton University sweater that I like to wear when, excuse me, when like I've got to do a long drive or whatever. I'll put it on. And the young lady says, "So you went to Carleton, or like you go to Carleton?" And I'm like, "I'm a dinosaur. I went there a long time ago." And she goes, "I go there too. I go there now. What did you study?" So I tell her I studied psych and law, and she goes, "I study psych too. Maybe we've had the same professors." And I just burst out laughing, like the professors I had are dead. They're long gone. Like they were a zillion years old when I was there. So I'm laughing my guts out, and she's looking at me being really polite, just like, "No, really." I'm like, "Okay, well, who do you have?" Right? And she starts rhyming off people that I have no clue. So it was nice though I felt like I was being welcomed. I felt like, "Oh, you went to Carleton? Welcome. Come on into my world." I'm like, "I can't. Look, I got 2 kids holding me back." I got all kinds of stuff in the way, but it was humorous. It was nice to be on the other side of it, right? Like she's looking at me like, "Oh, I'm studying statistics and it's just killing me." And I'm like, "Don't worry. Look at the other side. Like when you come out of this, look at what you have to look forward to. Like you may not be a waitress anymore. You may have another line of work that you're in. You might have a family. You might get to travel when you've got time off or whatever." Like, so anyway, your little welcoming people in from other disciplines reminds me of the other side and how the grass is always greener, right? Like that young lady, she's got a whole life in front of her. She doesn't even know about it yet. That's how young she is. But on my end, I've got a family and I've got stability and I'm in a great profession. Look at me. I get to podcast really early in the morning every week with you. If I was in university right now, that probably wouldn't be happening. I'd be asleep.
Yeah. That was actually, it's funny. That's a text. That was a text I got from a buddy. Just checking in with them. Hadn't heard from them in a little bit. They're good friends and similar sort of life pattern as my family. Some of the sort of the first neighbors that we had when we initially moved up this way. And it was just a, hey, how's it going? How's the family? They have some family life challenges going on right now. So when you get no communication for a while, even the random, "Hey, what's up, dude?" You start to, you're reminded of the humanity of the relationships and you need to reach out. So I reached back out and they said, yeah, everything's all good. We're just kind of busy. You sort of get the laundry list of stuff, the life challenges, the car broke down. We're trying to figure out daycare, all this kind of stuff. But the lead to the text was feeling like a teenager again. I just woke up and I looked, at the time and it was 11:30 a.m. I was like, whoa, that's a good chunk of the past there that you get to cash in on. And, I appreciate that because it sort of gave me, in so much as there's a whole group of us with this time off and we're, like we said, we're halfway through the 2-week period. And it can become really easy, as I have, to sort of make it as, get nonplussed about it. It's just a holiday. There are definitely others that are soaking it up. And my buddy, he's soaking it up. The fact that he can take that time, he's loving it. So I like those moments. I like those moments. It kind of does a little bit of an ego check, and I realize that there is some really sweet value to being a teacher and the schedule that it affords us and the connectivity with our family. Despite how I kind of rattle the cage sometimes from the inside out, asking questions that somehow might suggest I really don't like the work that I do. But yeah, it was a good little reminder that there's a world out there around education where people really do are working for the weekend, whatever that is. You know, they're digging their Friday because they know Saturday they can disconnect.
And I can't blame them for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't. Because sometimes that disconnect, sometimes you can't do that during the week, right? You just can't. But on Saturday, hopefully, you can open your eyes in the morning or whenever you wake up and you can just feel disconnected in another place. And that's needed for sure. I don't want to shift gears too harshly, but I think I'm going to, because your camera angle, I want to hear more about your camera angle today. I'm seeing the side of your basement where you operate, and it's kind of cool. The pictures on the wall, there's a drawer there. It's kind of antique-ish. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's far less that drawers that you can see is far less what's the word? Well, you say antique-ish, I'll say that. It's pretty crappy. I'll just say that. It's I don't know, it was maybe what it is, it's actually an old teacher's kind of podium that I've taken apart. So that top drawer that you can see, so this right here, up top here, there used to be that lectern top on it. And I removed the lectern and just kind of sanded it down. And you can see I just have a bunch of crap on top of it. But what in my ridiculous man cave down here, I'm kind of channeling maker space dysfunction. That's my theme for this space. So that thing that you see onto the side there, I put some casters on the bottom so I can kind of move it around. The kids have some art stuff on there. In the bottom I have like old video games stored.
Nice.
So yeah, just in kind of trying to find, to be honest, what has happened is where the camera is now is I've kind of buried it off to the side because I wanted more table. So I have a desk here that everything's on. So I just wanted more desk space to be able to draw or to write and to maybe do computer stuff like this. And that clothesline thing that you can see up there, that's just, my kids are constantly creating art pieces, and I'm running out of, I need the impromptu spaces, and I needed something where I could hang stuff because sometimes it needs to dry. So that wall there, I actually have a stringer there that I've put up, and I have a stringer behind me when the kids make stuff just so that they have drying space. Like, we have a ridiculous amount of creative pieces in the house.
You know what's awesome is that before, when you had the camera facing you and I couldn't see the side, I envisioned it going on forever. So now that I can see that there's a wall like 1 meter to your right,
that's about what it is, bro.
I'm saddened. Like, I'm seriously, I think you ruined the start of my 2018. I envisioned like a long hallway of tools and boxes, and I don't know, I didn't envision a wall right next to you. So what's on the other side? How much room do you have to your left?
Well, to my left, the left, and again, it's just messed up. It's more makerspace. So,
but how far does it go?
To my left, probably about 5-6 meters.
Okay, so I can rest easy now.
Yeah,
so
I'm not fenced in here. If I had to get up and run in a direction, I could, just not in this direction. Yeah,
it's just neat to get another perspective, and I wanted you to tell us about it.
Yeah,
you and I.
Yeah,
nobody else is watching.
I know. Well, you've had kind of like a static image for your backdrop too, right? Like, I have no sense of the space that you're in. I think I noticed that you've switched out. Is that a different calendar or that? Oh, no. I've got okay. We won't name the names because we don't have the marketing money to substantiate the lawsuit. And I think we already established in one of our previous podcasts that the audio is so much easier in some ways to monetize than straight up images. But I can now see it. I can see a wreath. I can see a couple wreaths. I can
You
see
know, it's
the.
funny. When I was setting up to talk to you this morning, as you can see, I've got a mic stand, I've got a pop filter.
Mhm.
I'm now feeling a little bit more pro. But anyway, I set up, I turn the camera on, I get everything ready. I look over at the calendar and I go to flip it to the new month. And sadly, I see that there is no new month. This is it. The calendar's done, which kills me because I'm like, I had a moment of, uh-oh, this is how I'm starting my 2018. I can't even flip the calendar. So I might invest in a new calendar of this type. I won't mention any more than that. But yeah, I'm a little bummed out.
It's you could get on Amazon, dude. Get on Amazon. Get that one now that you're outside the holidays. I'm still waiting for something to be delivered from Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not going to overplug that one. Yeah, it's interesting because the promise was the 27th.
Oh
Yeah,
dear.
so we'll
Well,
see.
you better talk to somebody about that. Maybe get a discount or a refund, or I mean, it's only fair, right? They promised you a certain day.
Yeah, yeah. I'll commit some time to that maybe today. Can I shift you a little bit? Yeah, I forget. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was looking away for a second. So I put out, and I guess it's a little bit in the spirit of what we're talking about. I put a poll out on Twitter a few days back. Just you ever done a poll? Do you ever put Twitter polls out?
I have not in a while, but I believe I have.
Yeah, I didn't. I definitely. I don't. I've done a couple in the past, some random passing thought just to see, you know, what's going on in the Twitter sphere, and I typically don't get a lot of hits. It's just more put the thinking out there. Let's see what happens. But this one got some traction, and maybe it was because I sort of then said, "Hey, please retweet." I said the words, "Please retweet this." So it was around. It's a question around whether or not teaching is the final job of your career. And
I participated in that. I
I
participated in that,
and you
Chris.
can reveal your answer or just let it slip by. What I find interesting is that it's kind of neck and neck. It's been more neck and neck. Now I will say the yes is ahead. The yes is ahead, as in teaching is the last job of the career. And it's kind of flatlined there, but it's spent more time spiking in the other direction. That no, teaching is not the last job in, well, whoever participated. I think I might be up to be 45, 46, maybe 50 now per participants. But I find that interesting. I would love to find those conversations. I mean, that's the cool thing about the anonymity is you just get the data. Um, and I don't know the proximity of that circle. So I don't know if the individuals are in the States or in the UK, all the little places that these polls can land, eh? So, but it's fascinating to me. I'll say for myself, I can't I would fall on the no, teaching is not it's not the last job in my career. What are your thoughts on that?
Really?
Yeah, it's not.
Really? You don't think
Hmm.
it is, eh?
I can go one. Do you want me to go one step further?
Yeah, take it one step further because, well, I'll tell you why I'm surprised by your answer.
This here's what I've come to realize is that I've been thinking a lot from the moment that whether it was the moment that I posted that poll or it was the undercurrent that I just wasn't aware of until I kind of let it rattle around a few more spaces in my brain. I've started to ask myself, what is it about teaching that satisfies me and I don't even want to say as a learner, but I'll say, what is it about teaching that satisfies me as a worker, as a whole person, but a worker? And why is it that I believe I can only get it from teaching? And as soon as I start to ask that, I inevitably start to look at, well, not only body of work, so the amount of work that I've done in my life in order to, as you kind of said, exist in this podcast this morning with you, that portfolio of experiences and actions and things that I've created, when I look at my career, it's been snaky, as in I've sort of gone through different types of jobs. So if I look at my past to predict future, then I have to say, no, teaching is not the last job in my career. Have I progressed? Have I grown? Have I invested? Have I developed? Do I feel like I've kind of leveled up? Yes. But teaching is, I've come to believe it is not my last stop. Can I say what my next stop is? No, because even when I think back, I wasn't always aware of the shifts that my life was going to take, but I have opportunized them. I have taken on different modes of work. Thematically, were there connections? Sometimes. Were they just passion plays? Sometimes. Did I always feel like I was doing what I was interested in? Yes. So I don't believe, I've come to fall on the side of, I don't believe that teaching is my last job in what would be a career. And I don't know how long we measure the career. I don't have a clear sense of retirement at all, but just that idea of the career. But I've also started to question whether or not I should be staying in teaching. Some of the energy that I feel is creating that Velcro connection with this trade, would it be better spent exploring other venues? Mic drop.
I don't know. Okay, well, thank you for explaining that to me. I don't know how deep I want to get with this topic because, okay, so do I enjoy what I do right now? The answer is yes. Have I considered other options? Yes. But here's the thing for me. And here's what, well, I don't care what other people are going to say or think, so I'm just going to say it. And you and I could talk about the nuances later. Am I going to find, can I find, will I find another line of work that I will feel good about and be provided with the benefits I'm getting now as a teacher? And when I say benefits, I don't mean like the dental and all that stuff. I mean, I have a family, right? I have responsibilities to them. And right now I'm able to offer them a comfortable life, which is great. I mean, that's what everybody wants. But if I leave teaching, coming back to it would be next to impossible because of the way the structure is now built for people who want to enter into the profession. And I don't think I'm going to be able to live the life and offer this life that my children are living to them if I don't go into something that will provide me the same as teaching provides me right now. It's just, I mean, unless I do something purely entrepreneurial that I love so much and I'm passionate about so much that I'm willing to step away from what I have that supports my family. And I just, I'm not in the mental space to do that. I'm not prepared to go there. But I also don't have anything that I really love that would drag me away. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. A few times, opportunities have come up around like ed tech type stuff. And I'm really passionate about that part of my work, about that kind of niche within teaching. I call it a niche because I think still there's a lot of people who are setting it aside and calling it a fad or whatever. But I mean, how could it be a fad when you've got technology everywhere all the time and whatever? But I've had some opportunities come my way. And when I've investigated them further, I learned quickly that those opportunities cannot compare to what I get in terms of a salary with my work, the time off with my work. They don't compare. And for me, that is an issue. Like some people will pretend that it's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal to me. It's a big deal to my family, right? Like I have to have, imagine that conversation with my partner. I'm leaving my steady profession to go and do this, for a fraction of the pay. And so we're going to have to change our lives because I want to do something differently. Like, it's just not, I don't see that playing out in a very positive way. So, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm holding back. There's a lot I want to say that I'm just not going to say publicly.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, but I mean,
It
so that's it for me. Like, that's my position.
yeah, it's I think the thing that sparked the poll was a moment. Another thing within it, besides when I think back on my body of work and all that kind of stuff, it was a conversation I had in the classroom with students during a careers class that I was teaching, and asking them whether or not, so often in high school when we're doing the careers course, there's a real sort of hard push for a grade 9 or 10 student, depending on the time they take the careers. It's a grade 10 course, but sometimes it's taken at different times. But in that careers course, there's a real hard push for students to shake hands with their future self. And they are making plans for university. They're making plans for independent living. The pathway, when they talk about the pathways development, they're a lot more diverse. And I think there's equal time spent talking about them, more so now than I'm imagining the back in the day version of careers, where it was only college or trades, right? You sort of are university, college, trades. It's now talking about a gap year, entrepreneurship. All these other things are kind of popping up into the conversation. And through that, we landed on a conversation around being future proof. And, when you're confronted with the challenge of developing your future self when you're grade 9 or 10 age, 13, 14, maybe 15 years old, like to get, I on one hand, if I just become, little edu-political here, how could you possibly know, and it's almost an impossible endeavor, I think, in some ways, to sort of explore the authenticity of that for a grade 9 or 10 student. There's an element of them kind of going along with let's say the task work, so that the task work gets them to explore a future that in my heart, I really don't expect them to commit to. But maybe the process of exploration is what's important there. So we're talking about their future, and kids are saying, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a chef. They're declaring all these things, and then we say, okay, let's make a path to get to that space, which again is good. And making that path to that space for some jobs is 10 years out. And without being too crushy and dream smashy, once we got through, I found myself in a conversation where we're saying, well, okay, I really appreciate the time you've spent planning for this future. Now, how do you know that future will be there when you get there? How do you know that the plans are like, if I want to make it authentic and we want to talk about doing a task right now that actually has a measurable outcome, then we also need to discuss whether or not student A talking about becoming a doctor. Well, how do you know that that style of medicine is going to be there in the future? And there's a whole lot of posts everywhere that talk about, the students training for jobs that don't even exist yet. Well, the other parts of that is, what about training for jobs that won't exist anymore? And what about just training for the jobs that are there, and how that tide is shifting? It's not the same training path to a job that you could have right now. So then they push back to me and they talk about being, what does it mean to be future proof as far as being a teacher? And they start throwing down, and I did a blog post about this, but they asked a lot of really pointed questions about what they would, if they could have a hand in changing EDU to their benefit. They're asking a lot of really great pointed questions, and many of them circle around your passion as far as ed tech, and how do we sort of deconstruct the classroom in such a way that the acceleration, we use educational technology to accelerate the learning and still be authentic in the classroom experience, whatever that might be. And they didn't know exactly what they were talking about, but they were saying stuff like, there should be Wi-Fi available in the library and in the parking lot. And by the way, why can't I Skype into your class from the library? Or even, where you've experimented, what about going and just working in the halls? Why do I have to come to school at 9 a.m.? I would do 8 hours of school if I could do 12 to 8. Or why isn't our school board more like a campus? If I want to go to this high school to take this course because they're offering it, why can't I register there? A lot of great questions. So when they flipped it back on me as far as being future proof, that's how I came to that question, because they were building. I very quickly found out that their assumption is that teaching is forever. It is the blue chip investment that you can, and again, to what you said, it is. And I totally get the, that stability factor. I totally get that when it's no longer just you, that sort of communal decision making that happens in the family to make sure that the mortgage is paid and there's clothes and the heat's still turned on. Those are directly related to the work that we do. But there's something funny about the fact that my students called out that concept that teaching is forever. It also made me wonder about, are jobs really like that at all anymore? Like, what's on that list now that you would say that it is that stable that it could be forever? And I love your mentioning about the possibility of that side hustle, like sort of being approached to do the ed tech stuff. And, definitely not going to go on, put you on blast for that. But I think those are really interesting moments to go deep on, because I would almost argue that if you're doing passionate work, those are the opportunities, those dissonant opportunities that will pop up and make you question, what should I do next in my career? They're challenging moments to be a part of. I've had a job offer in the middle of a moment that I wasn't thinking EDU, but it was connected to EDU. And it's in the moment, it's easy, not easy. In the moment, it was a little bit like cold water. Like I wasn't really expecting that conversation. But then you come down from that and it does start to put questions in your head. And sometimes working through those questions, there's no good landing spot, especially when it's still buzzing around in your brain.
I'd also love to know the people who did your survey and whether your poll and whether excuse me, whether they are new to teaching or veterans. Like for me, I also want to mention the fact that I'm starting to feel like I actually know how to do my job at this point in my career. You know what I mean? Like in my first 10 years, I thought I kind of knew what I was doing, but now that I look back, I feel like I've grown so much. I've learned so much more about my work, how to do my work, and being open to learning new things about how to improve. So, which is constant. Like there's always something new coming up about what to do in numeracy to help kids, become better with spatial reasoning and things like this. That if you're really closed off and you're like, yeah, I already know everything, well, that's not going to help. So I've learned that about myself as well, how to unlearn things and then learn new things. But I'd like to know, like in my first 10 years, I think I would have said to you, yeah, for sure, I'm open to going somewhere else, doing something else, because I was building my foundation, my teaching foundation. I couldn't see what was going to be built in front of me. But now, with 17 years in, I'm on the other side of the fence. Like I can look back and I can see that I've created something, I've grown, I've learned something, I've gotten better at the work that I do. And so I feel secure, but I know that secure feeling can lead to a lot of heartache as well. And so even though I feel good about what I do, I'm still very aware that there's new learning to come all the time, and I need to stay open to that and aware of that. But I just think, like, in my first 10 years, I did consider other things. Like, I would sit back and think, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be for a career. And in it right now, when I look at other people, like when I look at, I'm meeting a lot of teachers who teaching is their third or fourth career, and this is where they want to end. So they've experienced some things in life that have led them here, and they're very appreciative of the fact that how difficult it has been to get employment in the EDU field. That for them it's a completely different perspective, right? For them it's like, oh my God, I've done this in my life and I've done this and it's led me here, and this is where I want to be. And I'm so passionate about this work. I'm so interested in this work that I'm willing to give 4 to 7 years of my life as a guest teacher, supply teacher, so that I can get a permanent contract. Now, if somebody were to say to me, here's the job or the work that you want to do, you're going to have to give up what you have, and you're going to have to spend 4 to 7 years working away at that profession in order to get in, and then to get what you have now. You willing to go? The answer is probably going to be no. But I applaud the people who are entering EDU, having done 2 or 3 other things prior, knowing what they have to go through to get a permanent position, to be a full-time teacher, and everything that comes with that, like being a permanent teacher. So it's really interesting to me because, yeah, in my first 10 years, I would have, well, I didn't have kids, right? Like it was different. It was different. The first couple of years, I didn't own a house. So all that, my mindset changed about my career when those things started happening. Now, who knows? Maybe next week you and I have a chat and I tell you about something new I've discovered, or another path I want to take that can sustain the life I'm living now and keep my family moving in the direction that they're on, kind of thing. I don't know. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, having been in for this much time, I don't see myself going to something else. But who knows? Like, what if I was forced? What if I lost my job? Then obviously I'm forced. It takes me back to change and how change is inevitable. But when I spoke to Jamie Cassip on my podcast, Jamie said a lot of change that happens in EDU is forced upon educators. It's not, hey, you know what? We're going to give you 30 more Chromebooks for your classroom. That's never the type of change we get. The change we get is, we only have 10 for the whole school. Make it work. So anyway, Chris, I appreciate this talk about the work we do and whether it's our final career or not.
Dude, I got to tell you, you're a ninja with the mute button. You're a total ninja. I can't, you make me think a couple things. Perhaps I should have invested in the next level up microphone, because I don't have a mute button anywhere near it. I have to go over, and I know it's such a far move, but I have to go over and actually use my mouse to scroll up to the mute. And I have to, so you're, for anyone listening right now, my buddy's still suffering a little bit with the coughs and the sneezes, but you would never know it because he is a mute button ninja. And I'm bad for that. Like, even in when I'm in other people's casts or in those sort of, I forget to turn it off, and then I forget to turn it back on again. What did you have me thinking about yeah, I love what you said about I get the sense that your investment in your career is that you take a lot of pride in it. I get that, and that you you recognize your growth, and that there's a connection there between the grind, as we've talked about before in the past. The grind has resulted in something positive, and wanting to hang on to that. And for me, what happens, and I don't know why my brain does this, like I would say if I was looking back on my job as a teacher, that I was more confident in the beginning and less, I would almost say, confident or competent now. And I would say that because the type of work that I do, I've moved into almost wider, more ambiguous spaces, and it's harder for me to recognize the proficiency in these larger spaces. For me, when it was about teaching my hospitality class back in the day, I had that game locked. I knew how to tweak and to adjust and research and build more things. And I knew when to step out of the curriculum to draw in new breath, new fresh air in order to make that refresh my own courses. I found that it was methodical. I had a system to do it. And I think the spaces that I exist in right now, I don't have that foothold. I don't have that foothold necessarily. I don't have that connection to, I would say, let's say, that external kind of lattice work where I know where I am at any given time. There's a little bit more free floatiness to my existence right now. So to that, building the body of work that I would say I would feel more confident about, I think I'm more broadly skilled, but I'm not quite sure towards what end. And I think that open-endedness is what gets me dreaming about what could be the next thing, and why it also makes me question, would these elements that I seem to be good at, is it only within education that I would find them? That was the first part. The second thing you made me think about is that I've also done the calculations. I know according to the budget and financially what I would need to be making in order to make a transition. I've done that little bit of crazy. And I get that when you mentioned the sort of the value of what you've established, and that other people are dependent on you maintaining that growth, whether that's salary, stability, the schedule, all those kind of things. I have found myself, it was necessary for me to actually know what are the numbers in that conversation, so that if I did find a thing that I was interested in, I could speak to it not only from a passion place, a relational place, a life structure place, but I could also speak to it from a financial space as well. So if I were to step away from EDU, because the salary that I get paid is I'm not blowing through my salary every week, sort of maxing out stuff. So I know that the number that I'm paid is higher than what I know are the basic needs. And that can become kind of scary, because it's fear and excitement, similar energy, depends on how you want to shape that. It can feel exactly the same. When you actually know more about those bits, it almost becomes, I do it because I think I want to be more effective in the conversation, but it also completely reveals the curtain. And you're left standing there. Well, if I know that number of, let's make it about the amount of money that I need to have in order to keep the level of life that we've created here. If you know that number exactly, I feel like it's hard to not consider other options, because it's not a mystery anymore. It's not, let's say, anxiety inducing, I'm not quite sure what would happen if I tried this new task or I did this job. That might be a lateral move, but outside of what you're currently doing in your job or your career. If you knew the number, and again, we've talked about this before, I want the evidence that's keeping me from making a decision or compelling me to make a decision. I want to know what that number is. And it's not necessarily the thing that's there's so many other pieces that I would have to know, but there are things about career change shifts for me that I feel like I can figure out. And it doesn't necessarily make me want to jump out of education. But what I have found in the past is it's often that's the space when I've talked to people about career change and doing different things in their life, they'll mention they don't want to destabilize their entire life, but they actually don't have a handle on what the numbers are. They haven't done the number crunching. Would you still be able to keep your car? Would you be able to keep the wherever your accommodations are? Would you have to start eating, more frugally? Would you then, not be able to go out and see a movie once a month? But they don't have a handle on those numbers, but they hold a lot of gravity in the decision. So knowing for me, again, is a little bit of my own my self-reflection, but it also is the strange little bit of information that if I were to go into the conversation with my spouse, I would have to know that number. Like that would be one of the base bits of the combo. I would have to be able to say, okay, here's this thing that I would like to do. I think I can make X amount of money out of it. And then you kind of go, here's how it might shift our scheduling. Here's the longevity of it. Okay, benefits, I've thought about this too. So that's how I've spent my last week thinking about that stuff. And I always appreciate you jumping on, these sort of things that just grab my brain.
I need to say that I didn't know that you've been spending that much time thinking about this, which is kind of cool. Number one. Number two, I appreciate you saying something positive about my mute button skills. Dude, I at this point, I just feel like I'm going to be sick forever. So it's funny too, because normally I'll attach something like this to like, poor eating or whatever. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what's going on with me. So anyway, I've still got some of the symptoms that I had 2 months ago. So it's funny, you could watch the podcast and see the progression of my cough, cold, flu symptoms. It's absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, I didn't know that you were thinking about this so much, and I appreciate you sharing. I also wanted to say something about perspective. I appreciate your perspective because when you explain so if somebody walks up to me and says, hey, are you willing to quit your teaching job and go do something else, blah, 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 the answer is no. But when I hear you talk about the space you're in and how it's got you thinking, it makes sense to me that maybe this might not be your end game. It makes sense for me, and it allowed me to reflect on my perspective. And you said a couple of things that I thought, oh man, we're totally in sync today. The grind. I've had to work hard to get through all points of my schooling. And it's perspective. Some people might say to me, former classmates might say, struggle? You did great in university. You did great in your master's degree. No, for me, it was a struggle the whole time. Everything I did leading up to where I am today has been difficult. And maybe it didn't look that way to people because when I watch other people do things, sometimes I don't see the difficulty in what they're doing either, but they could be suffering through or whatever. So for me to get to where I am today, a couple of things had to happen. I worked my tail off and I was lucky. So with that hard work came success. And with that success, I found myself in the right place at the right time. And so that combination of the two has led me here. So am I about to let go of like where I am, knowing what I had to go through to get here? No, I'm not, unless it's something beyond the realm of like my understanding at the moment. So for me, that's the perspective for you. But when I hear your perspective, I think, wow, like it makes sense that your headspace is where it is, right? I think about the work you do, and I tell you every time we talk about it, I don't know how you do it. But now I'm getting a little bit more, because you've opened this up to the world, we are getting a little bit more understanding of where you're coming from and what you're doing. And I applaud you for crunching the numbers. I've never crunched the numbers. I've just said, I need this at the end of the day to make me go. And even then, it's not about the pay, right? Because if somebody said to me, we'll double your salary, but you're going to sit at a desk in front of a computer all day, every day for 8 hours. Are you interested? Nope, I'm not. Unless, well, unless I can do Google Hangouts and Skype and actually connect with people sitting at the computer. Sure, I'm in, maybe. But still, it's not all about the financial part, but that is a big part because you're right. Am I going to be able to keep a second car? Am I going to pay for my mortgage? Because if I can't pay for my mortgage, I got a problem, right? Like, I mean, these are the realities of life, but this might not be a reality for a 25-year-old who's renting an apartment in Uptown Waterloo or down the street from you in a basement apartment. It's not, because to them, they don't have what we have and the commitments that we've made. They don't have that. And so I'm arguing that of course it's easy to be open and loosey goosey with whatever comes your way when you've not made those commitments. I've made a commitment to other human beings, right? I've made a commitment to pay for the house I live in. I made a commitment to pay for the transportation that gets my kids to where they need to go. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm comfortable. Like, I'm not living a life that is difficult. I'm living a good life. Um, I'm happy with my life and I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry about heat and food and clothing like some people might. And so that's a factor. I just think you put it so nicely. Excuse me. My style is a little bit more rugged in terms of I have such a poor delivery. And I've been told recently by certain people who love me that my delivery is off. It's jagged. It's harsh. That's me, and I'm learning to embrace me. And so you said it so well. You said it so well. But for people out there thinking, oh, it's all about the money. It's not about the money, because somebody could offer me. I know people who make a lot more money than I do, who sit in front of a computer all day. They hate their job, but they can't just get up and walk away from their salary because it provides them with so much of the peripherals that it makes it worth staying. And that stinks too. Like, that's no way to live your life either. But I understand why people do it. So, wow, look at where we went with the question of, like, is teaching your last job in your career? It's pretty nuts. And I don't know. And perspective is huge. And it's important to listen to other people's perspective. Like, had I said to you, well, I could have easily said to you 15 minutes ago, you're nuts, Clough. Stop thinking what you're thinking. Wake up and go to your day job and get it done. That's not very sensitive, right? It's not very compassionate. But hearing you explain yourself, listening to the mindset you're in, the reflection you've done, the fact that you've, like, taken the time to crunch the numbers and to look at, like, how would this work? I need to know, because if I'm going to present this to my partner, I need to know how this would work. Wow, man, I didn't know. I guess you don't text me these little things, eh? When we're going back and forth, you'll say, hey, guess what, dude? I'm reflecting on such and such.
It's, I actually don't, I think you got, I think you deliver very clearly your thought process to me. I appreciate what I see in is the directness. I tend to circle around, and then all of a sudden I'm like, boom, here's my idea. I know that I do a lot of sort of dancing when I'm getting an idea out. I think that's part of the balance of yours and my discussion. And I appreciate, if I'll just say directness, sort of calling it out. That's what I get from you in it. So you're good. Have you ever been in a conversation with a colleague where they're questioning whether or not they should stay in teaching?
Oh, yeah.
And have you ever agreed to a degree that maybe they should go?
My
And
here's the
this is the decoded part, right? Because here's a conversation that here's a topic that I've yet to hear in any EDU podcast, is that, kind of cracking through just a little bit that assumption that, okay, teaching could be forever, but maybe not everybody is for teaching. And I have had that conversation where someone says, I just don't know. I think I want to, I want to, and this could be first, second, third year teaching. This could be 10, 12, 15-year teaching. I'm just not sure if I want to stay. And have you ever agreed with someone and saying, yeah, you know what? How do you even have that conversation? Like, have you ever had that conversation where you go, yeah, you know what? I've been kind of observing you over just not lurky or anything, but yeah, it seems like it's just not for you. Like, what other you're putting that 45-year-old teacher right back in a careers class. Like, have you considered something else? Have you made other plans for, a side hustle? What's that moment look like for you?
You know what? The people that need to be having those conversations, in my opinion, are the ones that never have those conversations.
Fair
They
enough.
don't. So what? Okay, I'm going to rely on my time, my 17 years in this work. And I've met a few people who, when you look around the room, everybody else thinking the same thing. This person shouldn't be here. Whether it's for this day or for this career, they shouldn't be here because they're not giving off the vibe, the positive vibes that need to be given off when you're working with kids. I mean, and that's my perspective. If you're going to work in a school with kids, you have to generally be a positive person, a kind person. Okay? Like, I'm not saying you don't have to be real, but what I'm saying is you can't be walking around mad all day. It just doesn't work for little kids. It doesn't work for high school kids, in my opinion. And excuse me, it's always been the people that need to have those conversations, they're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. It's the people who are so aware of themselves, who care so much about the work they do and how their work impacts other people, that are reflecting on these things. Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Now, there have been occasional teachers where, I've been sitting down at lunch and next thing you know, you're talking about the work and they're telling you, listen, I've been doing this for 5 years now. It's not looking good. And it's hard to have those conversations with those people because, at some point it comes up, why do you think you've been doing this for 5 years and you've not been able to land a job yet? Why is that? That's a hard question to ask. And I've only ever asked it with people that I felt like they could handle that question without taking offense of like, what are you trying to say about me? I'm not trying to say anything about you. I'm just saying you've been doing it for 5 years. I know people who've done it for 3 and they got a job. So what is it that you think led them to a permanent position and not you? And so we start talking about, politics or being in the right place at the right time, whatever. And then they hear my story, and my story is a great story. I was in the right place at the right time and I got a permanent job, and that's the way it happened. But for many people today, that's not the case. And so I have had that conversation with people. And I'm sure people have gotten up and left, and I just don't know because they're occasional teachers. So I only would run into them every now and again. With permanent full-time teachers, have I had that conversation? Yes, it's come up, and and generally comes back to the same thing that you and I are discussing today is, can I still support myself and my family, because most of them do have families, by getting up and leaving this line of work and walking into something else where there's no stability, there's no guarantee of anything? Am I prepared to do that? Do I have enough skills as a 45-year-old? Do I have enough? Is there enough of me that will make an employer want to take me under their wing, right? Because let's face it, you get older, people don't see you as a valuable asset as maybe a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old. They just, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, right? But I think I'm generally on the right path. Unless you go out and you get a new skill set, is somebody going to pick you up at that age? And for what position? Like, what are you going to do? What is it that you're going after, right? there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things there that you have to analyze and look at and think about. Um, I've had the conversation. It's never been with the people that needed it. Never. And my respect for the couple of people who have said to me, who have not gone there, but have said to me, listen, I put in 25 years. I'm getting a pension. Like it's there, it's waiting for me. I'm not going anywhere. And whatever my struggle in life is right now, be it a family situation or mental health issues, they're like, I'm not doing it. I'm sticking around. I'm getting that pension. Um, and for me, it's like, well, what do I say to that person? It's none of my business. I don't live their life, right? But my business has always been, if you run into my student, could you please treat them in a positive way because they're scared of you or they're worried based on your personality of how you might react to them in certain situations. And those conversations have always gone well. Nobody's ever lost it for that. Just like when I meet, for me, I take care of my kids the best I can. Sometimes my kids deserve to be disciplined by somebody else because of what they've done. I have no issues with that. But I have issues with kids walking around in the building and fearing a particular staff member just because either of by reputation or encounters with that person, and not just like a perceived fear, but like everybody in the building knows that that person is not doing well right now or hasn't been doing well for a bit of time, and they should take a time out from teaching, but they're not going to. It's not going to happen. And I know what I'm saying, like it's the decoded part. Maybe people on the outside don't know, don't care. I don't know. Maybe they do care and they just don't know. But it's like any other profession. There are going to be people at work who are suffering through family situations or mental health or financial struggles or whatever, and they can't come to work 100%. And I know some days I go to work and I'm not 100%. But what I try to do is I try to tell everybody around me, listen, for some strange reason, I'm really not feeling it today, and I got to get through this day, and I want to get through it as awesome as possible. And sometimes just letting them know that you're off allows them to meet you in a place where they wouldn't normally meet you, and then you get through what you need to get through.
I fully appreciate the bunch of things you put in there. The idea that stepping away from EDU and trying to get back in again can be incredibly difficult, especially if the stepping away. Here's my take on why it's difficult and probably problematic in the same way. When I think about career refreshment, if I decided, it's a funny thing, if I decided to go and do drama right now, if I want to do something in the drama field, I still have access to that. I know how to get there. And yes, there would be the logistics of trying to get there, but that path I feel is still possible. Hospitality, if I decide to go back and work in the restaurant business, I know the path there. It's funny with education, the silo kind of closes. It kind of closes. If you decide to step away, it kind of closes. And I mean, there's a lot of different sidebars here, and we definitely, I'm not suggesting we spend the time ripping this one apart, but there are individuals in education that have moved into that entrepreneurial side because that was something that they decided that's what they want to do, whether or not they're writing a book, whether or not they're, there's some sort of an ambassadorship, but they're sort of still connected to education, but they've shifted to do similar work, just slightly outside the silo. So where I just start to wonder about, I mean, and you mentioned the individual that maybe should be considering leaving EDU or needs to do some sort of refreshment. What about the individual that just wants change? They actually are pretty good at they're good at their job, and the kids are connected to them, but there's something where they're saying, you know what, I think that I want to be able to go and do a thing and then come back to teaching again, because I recognize that I do enjoy being in a classroom, and I do enjoy working with the kids and all the other stuff that has to do with not being just at that desk that you talked about and Skyping in your resources or your time. I look at education as the silo kind of closes if you step away, and getting back in can be kind of difficult because there's a very structured expectation of participation. So whether or not you're taking a sabbatical or you're going to work for the ministry, what if you just want to go away from education? What if I just wanted to go back and work for 2 or 3 years in the restaurant business and then come back? So happy New Year to your family. Your head is well placed.
Thanks.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I had on the tail end. What if you wanted?
Sorry.
What if you wanted to step away and come back? What if you're looking just to refresh yourself, but you wanted control over that? And it wasn't about disconnection. It was actually about an attempt to get reconnected.
Then I would say, well, first of all, I'd say that's awesome. That's amazing. To me, that's like a conversation I would love to have with somebody. You know what I mean? But then I'd say, because education, the silo of education closes in a way that's different than other professions, I would say, look into your options. What are your options for a leave of absence or a sabbatical? You know, like, check it out. See what you can do. See how far and how long you can step away and still have the option of coming back because you're unsure. Or like you said, you want to do something that may reconnect you back to this work, which would make you better. So totally. I've never had one of those. You know, I've talked to my wife about doing one of those. We call them 4 for 5s, but really, it could be like 3 for 4, whatever. Where you can have a year away from the classroom or whatever position you have in EDU to pursue something else. I've had that conversation with my wife. I have it every year when we get the email that says you can apply for deferred salary leave, and this is the deadline to apply. Every year, I kind of look at her and I'm like, hey, what if we both apply for this, and our plan for our leave would be to travel here or there to do these things, like connected to our work, not just let's go to the Bahamas for a year kind of thing. But it could be like I mentioned once, what if we went somewhere and we did mission work for a certain amount of time, and we pull the kids come with us, obviously, and the kids experience something that they may never experience in their life again. Like those are valuable experiences. That's a valuable option. The only thing is I'm going to have to get a reduced salary for a certain amount of time. And so you need to sit down and crunch the numbers, because then in that situation, again, it's the same thing. You're only stepping away for a year to do whatever it is that you're going to pursue, but you got to make a sacrifice up front, right? Because they got to find the money somewhere. It's got to come from you. And so that's another conversation. But that's one worth having, in my opinion. And I don't know when I will just sit down and say, okay, I want to do this. How can we make this work? But I mean, that's an option for people as well. I think those are refreshing conversations. Those are the conversations where someone is really thinking about the impact they're making. They're really thinking about how to re-energize themselves and how to get themselves in a place where they're satisfied and they're self-actualized, which is hugely important at this point in our lives. And when I say our lives, I'm talking about people, over 40, mid-career, right over the fence in their career. I think it's important to self-examine, not just at those points in life, but more often than that. I think a lot of people are missing that part. But anyways, so to answer your question, I would love that. If somebody sat down and said, hey, Roland, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm thinking. I'd be like, holy cow, are we really having this conversation? I would want to milk that conversation for all that it's worth, for selfish reasons, and to like get a real perspective on where my colleague is coming from. what they want to do and why they want to do it. And I think there is room for that. I think there is room for a leave. I don't know how long of a leave you can have without losing. I know I've heard of people having extended leaves where then they lose their position at their school, but they've not lost their job. So, they'll be told, okay, now that your leave is extended, we can no longer guarantee you returning to St. John's School. Like you're going to lose your job at the school. But when you do return by this day, we will place you somewhere else and you will still have employment, just not where you left from. And that's fair. Like, I mean, they've got to do what they have to do to make sure the system's running. But yeah, deferred salary leave. Every year we get the email. Every year I look at my wife and I'm like, what do you think? And it's never really gone too deep. But now that I'm hitting 17, I'd like to say that before I retire from teaching, I would love to have a year of leave to pursue something that would benefit me as a person and that would benefit like my work when I return. So
yeah. I think that if I'm assigning any homework, hate to do that over the holidays. We don't have that mandate in the Archids Clough school board system. Well, we can do homework over the holidays. I think I want, and again, I'm coming back to that evidence base. If I know the number, what it would take to keep the ship afloat. I think I want to know what the options versus opportunity in the school board, like, because we openly talk about retirement. How many different retirement, kind of meetings are available to you when you're from the point that you kind of step into education, and everything sort of speaks to that end game. Like, we're very good at sort of talking about where you can sort of end your career, and it's more comfortable. Like, your conversation about retirement is like, that's easy. You can have that with anybody. But the conversation around change within, that becomes a little bit more slick, eh? I think I want to see that. I think I want to see what those options look like in my school board. I think I want to rip them up a little bit and see what's available there. Because even the fact that, as you're talking, like, we have 3/4, and I think it's 3/4. I don't even know if we have a 2/3, basically, where you can distribute your pay so you can get a year off to do something. I know of it, but I don't know about it. And there's something in me that just because I do the research, that doesn't compel me to make a decision. That just means I'm better informed for when the decision presents itself. And I'll have individuals that won't even bother doing the research, like, no, I don't even want to talk about that, because somehow doing the research suggests that you're going to make a decision right away. They want to keep it at bay. Like, they'll be compelled to make the wrong decision if they have too much information. I'm on the other side. I like to have a ton of information so that when I'm in a moment like this, like, I'm bugged right now that I can't parallel my board's information to what you're talking about, because I have an awareness of it, but I have no clue about the structure of it or impact. So I think that's the homework I'm going to assign myself. I think I really do want to see if you've got teacher and then retirement, what does that space in between there look like? What are those sort of options? Who knows? Maybe by next week I'll have gotten a different job in education. Not likely, but I think that's something I want to be clear on.
that's good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy that you're going to go and do some research, and you've got a little bit of time to do that right now, right? So
yeah,
figure it out and figure out what your parameters are, then go from there. And the homework, oh geez, you and your homework.
it's okay. I think I'll be the prodigal son on that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'll go away to come back.
So on this first day of January 2018, I hope that we can keep going with the Decoded podcast and keep chatting about the work we do and the stuff that pops up around it. Also, I wish you, Chris, and whoever's listening, a happy New Year. I hope it's a good one for everybody. As you know, I'm not going to lay down any resolutions, but I mean, I am looking forward to starting off 2018 on the right foot and to to learning more, to being a better person, whatever that looks like and however that manifests itself. But yeah, I'm glad that we could talk on this first day of the new year.
For sure, man. I echo all the same sentiments. All the best to you and yours, and to anyone that's checking in on the podcast. I wish the same to you. No resolutions here. Just going to stick to the grind. Going to be looking to I don't know, just stick to the grind. That's it. I'm happy to have a little bit more time off to hang with the fam and to do some fun family activities and reconnect with people that I just don't get the chance to connect with during the school year. And to have some time for me just to sort of read and relax and write. So happy new year to everyone.
Right on. Okay, we'll talk soon.
Take care, bro.
See ya.